Now we take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The federal government intervened yesterday in the face-off between Dangote refinery and the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengasin, which other things being equal was expected to commence an industrial action in the early hours of this morning. It assured that there will be no disruption in the supply of refined petroleum products across the country as a steering committee of the Domestic Crude Oil and Refined Product Sales and Local Currency Initiative met to review developments in the downstream oil sector. The assurance followed the weekend's directive issued by Pengasin to its affiliates to cut off crude oil and gas supplies to the Dangote refinery. A meeting chaired by the Minister of Finance and the Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, underscored two recent developments, including the purported suspension of the Naira for crude oil arrangement by the Dangote refinery and the concerns raised by Pengasin regarding the refinery. In a letter signed by the General Secretary, Lumumba Okubawa, the union accused the refinery management of disengaging unionized workers and embarking on a mission of misinformation and propaganda instead of engaging meaningfully with the union. However, the Dangote refinery described the move as a brazen, albeit shocking display of lawlessness and criminality by Pengasin. In other news, the federal government has strongly rebutted recent allegations stemming from international platforms and online influencers that terrorists operating in Nigeria were engaging in a systematic ethno-religious genocide against Christians. In a statement yesterday, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Idris Mohammed, rubbished such claims as patently false, baseless, despicable, and divisive. Idris described the reports that portrayed Nigeria's security challenges as a targeted campaign against a single religious group as a gross misrepresentation of reality. The minister urged the international media and other commentators to act responsibly, respect facts, and avoid ignorance, sensationalism, and divisive rhetoric. He also charged them to support the country's ongoing efforts in the fight against terrorism and all forms of criminality. He reiterated the government's commitment to completely degrading terrorist groups and securing the lives and property of all citizens. The Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees, NULGE, Osun State Chapter, has raised alarm over what it described as an unprecedented abuse of power by key federal government officials in the handling of the state's local government allocations. Speaking at a press conference in Osogbo on Sunday, the state's NULGE president, Dr. Nathaniel Ogungbangbe, accused the Minister of Finance, the Accountant General of the Federation, and the Attorney General of the Federation of unlawfully releasing Osun's local government funds into accounts operated by sacked All Progressives Congress chairmen and councillors. Dr. Ogungbangbe explained that the controversial accounts were opened with UBA, United Bank for Africa, without due process. The union leader argued that the action of the federal officers amounted to a violation of both the Constitution and judicial pronouncement. NULGE recalled that the Federal High Court had on May 15, 2025, ordered all parties to maintain the status quo, a directive which the Central Bank of Nigeria had acknowledged as binding in their court filings. All right, let's go straight into dissecting the news this morning. Rufai, good to see you this morning.
Morning, Ayo.
And
morning,
Dr. Bati.
Doctor, good to
welcome
see you.
from
Welcome
Abuja.
back.
What did you bring for us this morning?
What are the implications of such a noble one-week-long visit? You need to be able to give us.
No, it's not 1 week long.
It wasn't until week 5.
2 days.
2 days.
Just 2 days.
It seemed like one week.
in my eye.
All right, Rufai, you're looking dapper this morning.
Thank
Without we call the cravat, but let's get straight to business this morning.
Or an ascot, like people like to call it.
All right. So, I mean, we have a number of stories for us today.
Yes.
I'm sure you listened to all of them. The big one, of course, this morning, Pengasin versus Dangote. We thought we'd seen the end of it following that peace meeting in Abuja, but obviously things have broken down even further. But your take on these stories?
No, you're not going to see the end of Dangote and what's it called, Pengasin soon, because when Bele is involved, people want to eat, then they will fight to any extent. Is it not the same people that we know in this country? When the same oil marketers were siphoning fuel in the name of subsidy before the Aikimokwede Committee was set up, where they were importing water into this country. It's not my word, though, but the reporting that came out and the corruption that Aikimokwede Committee revealed. Where was Pengassin to berate them then? So all of this is an orchestrated move against Dangote refinery. And it's an orchestrated sabotage attempt. These were the same people now that wrote petitions to the government of the day then after the Port Harcourt and other refineries were sold to Dangote many years ago. For them, it is the disorder of the oil industry that favors them. And as long as you have that, our country will not move forward. So they will make all sorts of wild claims. The next thing they said, how many Indians did they say come in? Is it up to 1,000 or what? Because I can't even remember the number. So how did the Indians come? Is it that our immigration is not even working, that they are dead in immigration? They should bring out the empirical facts now and the statistics that showed how the Indians came in now, that they claim that Dangote refinery has gone to put in the refinery. Because you see, when they talk, they don't even know they indict other paraphernalia of government. They don't know that they are even indicting the people in the, the customs. So they should bring out their facts. And they went further, they did the big one, shut down everybody's life and livelihood. You want to spot Dangote. So which one is going to cost gas supply to electricity producers? And electricity producers were scampering yesterday for gas. You put the nation in national security jeopardy because of your own selfish interests. There's headline news for them. Game is up. I didn't know the same people that they imported adulterated fuel into the country. And they sent it to NNPC. Did they think we are forgotten? See, the truth is, I will set down some ground rules. I am not against people joining union. It's voluntary. But do not use union to weaponize union to sabotage people's business. And that's what I see that is being done here. Ask yourself this practically. After Dapman, after Moman, Nupeng, then Pengassin, on one man. And all of these people are interconnected one way or the other because they worked in the ecosystem. If Pengassin is so passionate about Nigeria, after billions were plowed into the NNPC refinery, to today the refineries are not working, why can't Pengassin go and stage a protest in the refinery and demand accountability? But what did we see the other day? Didn't Pengassin go hold a visit with Ojulari and commending him for all the work done and the refineries are not working? So why can't they go? Why is that? It's somebody's private refinery they want to pull down. I read all the arguments, disengage. But in the argument, they will not say the other part that Dangote was talking about, that he sends sabotage. That's why those people were disengaged. So if you see somebody that is sabotaging your business, you will leave them there. We can't build a country this way. The news flash for these people is that the game is up. The game is up. All the largesse that they used to collect before in the name of union, it's all up today. Like a famous Yoruba musician will say, I will say it in Yoruba because I support my dad, I will translate in English. He says, Ejawola pon ti o yo, elogbonmi lakana shina bode, Ejawola pon ti o yo, elogbonmi lakana shina bode. He says, leave an ogbono soup that is not drawing enough. Go and put water on fire for okra soup. Shina Peters is here. In a matter of time, they will get to know. Maybe they are doing peace meeting today. We'll see the end of it. But you can't tell a man, and it doesn't make any economic sense, that I invested over $20 billion in this same economy that you people had the chance to invest, you never invested in. You can't tell him not to thrive. You will have to learn to work with him. Secondly, as regards, what's it called? The news about Christian genocide. You see, that's why when we berate right-wing media and conservative media, a lot of people just think we are talking. Till tomorrow, where did Bill Maher get his source from? Because all of this stem from Bill Maher on the show on HBO. Where did he get his source from? He never cited any source in the report. That's why a lot of people have countered it. These are constantly some of the projections that Republicans, and there's also a Christian interfaith group called Open Door that said estimated 10 to 18,000. But this is a propaganda scheme of the right wing. And this is what has seeped into our ecosystem. So when Nigerians believe the right way, so I'm not saying that we are not having genocide, but the insecurity does not know tribe or religion. Everybody's being killed. Look at Kwara recently. Look at all the parts of the country. We have a big insecurity problem that I feel the government needs to face. But for the sake of propaganda, a lot of right-wing people will couch it along religious lines. I'm not saying we don't have religious killings, don't get me wrong. At some point, Father Kuka had even gone to America to report cases like this. Yes, we have that.
All right.
But on this, that's what we call a propaganda outlook that some people are pushing.
Okay.
So we should be careful.
All right.
They will say, why yo?
Let's be careful. Dr. Batin.
Okay, let's start with Dangote and Pengasan. Festus Osifo, who is the president of Pengasan, has been... TUC, Trade Union Congress, yes, right? Has been, on air talking about this Pengasan move. And he has been giving conditions to Dangote, saying that, Dangote refinery must recall all the sacked or redeployed workers. The figure is put at about 800, that otherwise there will be problems. The workers will come and picket the refinery, and then, of course, Pengasan, in his original request, was saying that Section 40 of the Constitution has been violated, and to that extent, Festus Osifo says that Dangote refinery is guilty of economic sabotage. Now, I think the joke is on Pengasan. It is Pengasan that is guilty of economic sabotage, or an attempt to sabotage the Nigerian economy. And it is therefore in order that the coordinating minister of the economy has summoned a meeting today that all the warring parties should come together. First, it was NUPENC protesting. And the Dangote refinery said, we are not against our members, our staff, joining unions. We are not against it. We pay very well, but Osifo says, they don't pay well. Nigerian engineers are not properly paid at Dangote refinery. Now, this raises questions about unionism and its impact on the economy. The first point to be made is that this morning I was looking out whether there will be no fuel at the fuel stations. Apparently, the proposed strike action is not working, or it has not yet reached the downstream sector. Some of the claims made by Pengasan have been debunked by the Dangote refinery. One, that these persons that were sacked or redeployed to Dangote Sugar were found to have been persons working within the refinery who were sabotaging the refinery. Now, you will spend $20 billion to set up a factory. There's no employer of labor that will allow people to sabotage his own interests. Okay, so Dangote refinery says this is the basis. They say, you have brought thousands of Indians to come and replace them. Dangote refinery says these persons have been brought in for technical expertise from which Nigerians can also benefit. Festus Osifo was saying, well, oil and gas sector, even the money that Dangote made, we were the ones that provided the opportunity as laborers in the oil and gas sector. How? This same Pengasan that destroyed Nigerian refineries. Yeah. Is it not their members that mess up the oil and gas sector? He said, we are the ones producing the oil. They couldn't even achieve 2 million target of crude oil production. So Pengasan or NUPENC, all of them together, they seem to have developed this habit of sabotaging the Nigerian economy. They've been able to do it and get away with it with the Nigerian government. But now that you have a private investor who is trying to pursue the interests of industrialization, now they are giving him problems. I think that Pengasan, NUPENC, all these groups, they are playing their last card. And everyone in that sector should be reminded of the example of Margaret Thatcher when the coal union workers rose against Margaret Thatcher. and the British economy, Margaret Thatcher put her feet down and put an end to the nonsense. And this is why people have been saying that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has to take charge. He has to get involved in this problem. How can a man invest $20 billion? He has creditors who are going to call in their investment. And then you have a group of workers who say, oh, it cannot work. The danger is that you will discourage other investors. They don't want to come to Nigeria because they say, okay, these Nigerians, they will come tomorrow now. A group of them will put themselves together. They are saying, we are protesting. We are labor workers. We have rights under Section 40. We say this without prejudice to the fact that labor rights must be respected under international law provisions. However, Pengassan, we're saying, is just interested in the pockets of his members. What is the genesis of this? Pengassan approached Dangote refinery and said, look, some of your members, some of your staff are our members. And so we want check of dues. It's always about money and stomach. Mm-hmm. And then the Dangote refinery then said, okay, at what point did these people join your union? Did they notify the employers of labor, the company? Since it is free, you can join whatever you want to join. Okay, where are the registration forms of these so-called members? Those members who are going to Dangote refinery to picket this morning, as they say they've been directed. If Dangote did not set up the refinery, would they have a place to go and be making trouble? So these are some of the details, but I think it's important that the Nigerian government is taking an interest in the matter. The whole point is to encourage industrialization, to encourage investors, to encourage people like Dangote, who has told us that, in fact, he doesn't have any house anywhere else in the world. His commitment is to Nigeria. I don't think that such a man should be discouraged. Festus Osifo says they have about 200 oil and gas companies that they will mobilize to fight Dangote refinery. That's economic sabotage. I'm surprised that he has not been arrested already by the Department of State Services to say you as an individual cannot sabotage and, grind the country to a halt. Look, we should be serious. There should be, nobody should blackmail the Nigerian government or the people of Nigeria, because at the end of the day, if you allow Pengassan Nupeng to get away with their craze, to use a famous Nigerian word, it is we, the ordinary people of Nigeria, that are going to suffer. So it is our interest as Nigerians that is more paramount, in my view. As for the point about religious conflict, violence in Nigeria, what did you call his name? Bill Myers? Well, he was lying. He was in fact saying in that conversation that religious genocide in Nigeria is worse than what is happening in Gaza. Now that's taking hyperbole, to the extreme. You cannot compare Nigeria to Gaza. It is true that religious conflict is an issue in Nigeria, and it's linked to terrorism, but we do not have genocide here. So I think that Information Minister Mohammed Idris is right to say that, yes, there is religious conflict, but everybody is involved. It is the responsibility of government to make sure that this environment is safe for every Nigerian and not for outsiders to exaggerate in an attempt to fit into a particular narrative. Now, the subject is not new. There was a time the State Department, under protocols relating to religious freedom, blacklisted Nigeria. But they have since lifted that. And I think it's, what's his name now? Femi Fani-Kayode. At that time, he wrote a series of articles complaining about how Christians are targeted. But we're in a situation in this country where it's not only Christians that are targeted. Muslims are also targeted. In fact, traditional religion worshippers are also victims of the conflict within the environment, which, as Mohammed Idris pointed out, Minister of Information, is very complex. And so this attempt to cause division in Nigeria to, create a false narrative, I think should be resisted by Nigerians. Finally, Oshun, I've commented severally on that, to say that it is ironic that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who fought the federal government of President Obasanjo to a standstill over the same issue of seizure of local government funds, is the same man presiding over the same situation. And I think that all the officials involved, whose names have been mentioned, the Attorney General of the Federation, the Minister of Finance, they should not play politics. In fact, what we expect from the Tinubu administration is that the Tinubu administration should consistently, persistently, continuously defend the rule of law. Absolutely. But you have an irony in the case of Osun State. The governor is there. You know, he wants a second term. He's very friendly with the president. But at the same time, he needs to stand up to and insist on the legitimacy of the claim of the local government structure in Osun State. Because as the courts have ruled, at the Federal High Court level, at the Court of Appeal level, the matter is now before the Supreme Court. The Tinubu administration cannot preempt the Supreme Court. That would be a violation of the rule of law.
Absolutely. I talked about the rule of law last week. I was talking about the symptoms of a failed democracy, and part of it is a lack of respect for the rule of law. And this was a conversation had as to whether or not the president is a Democrat. And in analyzing that, I looked at some of the things that have occurred under his administration. And one of the examples I also have cited is what is going on, or the illegality that is being perpetrated in Osun State. We have raised this issue a number of times, and it's quite unfortunate to see that despite the calls for a respect for the rule of law and not to politicize the situation in Osun State, the court-sacked chairman of local councils or local government areas in Osun State went ahead to open a bank account, and funds were paid into that bank account. Of course, you cannot take away the politics of this, and what Osun State is calling for and has called for, and which we must back, is the fact that all they're asking for is respect the rule of law. The court has ruled on this matter. The matter has been appealed, but it's still an ongoing matter in the court. So why the rush to pay into their accounts the illegality of these APC chairmen who were sacked by the courts? It beggars belief, and it's quite sad to see this happen under the tenure or the administration of a Democrat who himself had to go through legal processes to take his stand in pursuing true federalism while he was governor of Lagos State. I'm hoping that this matter in Osun State will be resolved and that the rule of law will be paramount, and at the end of the day, we'll see true democracy play out in the state. Now, let's talk about Pengassan and Dangote. Dr. Bati, you were right. So, first off, Osifo is actually double president of Pengassan and
Can you even just imagine that, Ayo?
So
How
he
can
went
somebody
both
I thought he
that.
was the president of Pengassan.
How can somebody be the president
and
of
TUC? So he's both of them.
and Pengassan at the same time?
So he wears two hats when he goes for interviews. So
Na
he's
collabo.
because that's why, of course, the TUC would back Pengassan, just to give that Pengassan's actions. They've come out very solidly supporting Pengassan's action. But a number of things have been said about this. We've been following this story. We've been bringing updates on this. We're quite relieved to see some kind of agreement reached at the mediation that happened in Abuja. And unfortunately, we've seen that break down. And now Pengassan has come out to say that despite Dangote refinery saying that they would not stop any of their staff members from joining a union, which is their right under the Constitution of Nigeria, Section 40, they went ahead to sack 800 staff members of staff based on them joining Pengassan. Now, Dangote has come out to give reasons for this. This reason has already been enunciated. It has already been talked about. But one of the things I would say is some of the lessons that we learned from this. A lot of criticism, and perhaps the unions have come under scrutiny following what has happened in the last few days and last few weeks. And one of the biggest criticisms is what has unfortunately destroyed a lot of institutions that we have in Nigeria, which is corruption and a lack of trust in the intentions of what the union was set up for. Traditionally, and that's why I think it will be dangerous to demonize unions, because in the past, as we've cited in many instances, the unions have worked quite well for the people, the good of the people, through collective bargaining. That is one of the strengths of the unions, and that is why in many countries around the world, you would see unions able to come together as a collective voice to ensure the rights of the workers, fair wages, good welfare, and other such things. However, and that's what Pengasan, TUC, NLC, and such unions, NUPENG, are supposed to do for their workers, hence engendering voluntary association to these unions. But in a situation where we begin to question whether or not the unions, what they were set up for, is what they are doing, or whether it's just as an opportunity to benefit the pocket of a few, it's quite unfortunate. But this is what we see across different institutions in the country. It's not just peculiar to the unions in Nigeria. So that's on one hand a lesson we're learning from this, that we need to take a closer look at our unions, our labor unions in Nigeria, and what they truly stand for. Do they stand for the good of the people that they represent, or do they stand for the good or the benefits of the few who are benefiting financially or otherwise from the unions? That's one. The other part is that the unions do make a good point, that irrespective of how big an organization is, they must respect the rule of law, they must respect the laws and constitution of the nation. And so what they are asking for is an independent investigation as to these sacked workers in Dangote, whether or not it was as a result of them joining the union, which they have the full right to do, and with Dangote Refinery themselves have assured Nigerians that they were going to respect their rights to join a union. If indeed it's as a result of them joining the union, then we should not, we would not support that, because what Dangote Refinery are supposed to do is to respect the rights of their workers, irrespective of whether or not the unions are working for them. If they do choose to unionize, it is within their rights. And so that ought to be investigated. I agree to an independent investigation. And I'm hoping that this meeting that is happening later today in Abuja would yield much fruit. The other part is, of course, what Dangote Refinery has put in their statement, which is quite correct, that the union had said in the last statement that they were going to pursue legal means to address these issues. And so why are they now opting for criminality, if we were to put it in what it is really, to get their voices heard? What they said was that they were going to go through the courts in the event that there was an infraction on Dangote Refinery's part. We cannot deny the fact that the Dangote Refinery is a critical national asset. And what the union is proposing to do will shut down the economy. Already there was panic buying in some areas and some quarters of the country because of this threat of a strike. Do we want to go back to the days whereby there are long queues, people are in darkness because a group of people feel aggrieved? I understand the need for them to take the stiff action to bring Dangote Refinery to the negotiation table. However, at the expense of who? At what cost? That's what Nigerians are asking for. We have fought too much. A lot of investment has been made for too long for us to still be in this position, whereby we are now going to be brought to our knees. Dangote Refinery has contributed significantly to the economy and livelihood of Nigeria. So we must put that into consideration. Finally, I would say that it is also a very dangerous signal to investors. Ever since the Dangote Refinery has come on stream, it has been from one battle to the other. Whether they're fighting with the cabals in the oil industry, they're fighting with NUPENG. It has been a threat to the investment of a Nigerian and an indigenous investment. What kind of signal are we giving to potential investors? And I often say that it's not enough to go around the world asking investors to come and bring their money, their dollars, and their foreign currencies to the country. We must ensure that there is an enabling environment for investors, and not just by what we say, but by what they see as well. And this does not look good at all. So I look forward to what the outcome of the negotiations in Abuja, the mediation, will be. And I hope that all parties will win. Dangote Refinery, its workers, and the labor unions.